Welcome the leader of the Liberal Democrats, Jo Swinson. So, welcome to this Leaders' Question Time. I'm going to make the same plea to you. You've probably heard it. Same plea for brevity and relevance. That's what we want, isn't it? And if you've been watching, you'll know that the audience has a lot of questions, and I'm sure you want to hear as much from them as possible.
Absolutely.
So let's get stuck in. So our first question for you is from James McLaughlin.
Hiya, how are you getting on?
Yeah, very well, thanks, James.
Do you regret starting off the campaign by saying that you could be PM? And do you now agree how ridiculous that sounded?
Would need a tsunami of seats, 314. So, to answer the gentleman's question, are you still saying that you could be Prime Minister?
Look, I recognise that things have got much more challenging since Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage cooked up a deal to stitch up seats between them. I get that it is a big ask. So, you know, I think we've all made some predictions which have not turned out to come true.
OK, the woman in the red jacket.
Talk about the LibDems as a viable alternative to Labour or the Tories. I'd just like to ask you, with 14 million UK citizens now living in poverty, do you regret consistently voting with the Conservatives in favour of harsh and uncaring benefit cuts?
So should we just look at your voting record? In government, you voted for the bedroom tax.
Yeah.
You frequently voted against raising benefits and frequently voted against paying higher benefits to people with illnesses or disabilities.
You're still going to keep the universal credit, which everybody knows is not working at all. And I can't honestly say that I could ever trust, after what happened in Sheffield, and we know all about that in Sheffield, when the Lib Dems went into coalition with the Conservatives, how can we expect it to be believing anything you say on this issue?
I haven't changed my view on whether I think we are better off in the European Union. And watching what I have seen in the last 3.5 years, watching in Parliament MPs who voted to leave, who want Brexit, unable to agree amongst themselves about what Brexit looks like. So Theresa May proposes a Brexit that Boris Johnson doesn't think is Brexity enough. Boris Johnson proposes a Brexit that, first of all, Nigel Farage says he can't handle, but then who knows what discussions they've had and what's been offered in order to get him on board. 17 times in Parliament we put down amendments to try to secure a people's vote.
We're in coalition with the Tories, so can you confirm whether you would go into a coalition with them again?
We have led that campaign for a people's vote, and we, with more Liberal Democrat MPs in the next Parliament, will campaign for a people's vote.
For me, I'm a Remainer. I voted to remain. I would like a people's vote, but for me, the Liberal Democrats seem more interested in just arguing with, rather than working in collaboration with other parties and other politicians. So for me, I don't see the point in that.
It's actually, why have you ruled out a coalition with Jeremy Corbyn, who, of course, was just standing here just a few moments ago, when they have promised a second referendum? They are surely your best hope to remain.
I hear you talk about concern for the poor, but the reason people are poor are because of austerity, which you supported. Your deputy leader recently said that he wants the government to run a permanent surplus, which is essentially a more palatable way of saying permanent austerity. Why should we trust you not to further cripple our public services?
And the man there in the grey shirt.
Hi, yeah. You've apologised to students for the student debt debacle. We haven't said what you're going to do for them. So students are living with 50 grand worth of debt. They're paying interest from the time they start to study when they can't possibly pay it back. They're paying over 6% in interest when they're lucky enough to get a job. We've created a generation of graduates who are in persistent debt to the state. It just doesn't hang true. So what are you going to do for those people? Like, we've created a whole generation in persistent debt.
Pick up the point about austerity. You know,
what this questioner is saying is that you'll make austerity worse by running a budget surplus.
If you vote for Boris Johnson, he will use that vote to put through his hard Brexit deal. If you vote for Jeremy Corbyn, he will use that vote to negotiate a Labour Brexit deal.
I've heard you this evening trying to defend your record on your vote, and then on the other hand you'll say how, you know, you're against these horrible Tory cuts, and I really, really can't trust you. and you got one difficult question and you immediately tried to turn it round to anti-Semitism. Jeremy Corbyn has been fighting anti-Semitism and racism in all its forms since before you were born, and you've got some brass neck to stand up there and call him an anti-Semite.
Having voted a number of times for fracking, how can we be sure of your commitment to halting climate change?
Well, I'm against fracking.
So why did you
That's not what
vote
you said.
against a ban on it in 2015?
You say that you'll do progressive policies like childcare and Sure Start and all that kind of stuff, but you voted against it. You voted against it in the when you were in Tory government. You particularly, you yourself, have voted against progressive politics. And every time you are asked about something, you attack Labour. And you pretend to be somebody who is akin to Labour in some of those progressive policies. Well, I don't believe it. I don't think that you have progressive policies. I don't think that you have left-wing policies. I think that actually the Liberal Democrats are a right-wing party, and they do not get my vote.
Okay.
I just kind of want to follow up about the whole climate change, because recently on This Week you said you would be okay with using nuclear weapons. Can you please clarify why you think that would be okay, and how is that going to protect the planet?
I think that we need to keep our nuclear deterrent.
When you were in coalition with the Conservatives, you failed to stop them doing a number of things you would now reverse. When the Conservatives were heavily in minority in government just recently, you failed to put your pride to one side, team up with Corbyn and the others, and bring down the government, and then bring forward a referendum. We don't have to have this election. We could have avoided it.